welcome to Live Interactive English. Hello, everyone. I'm Mike.
And I'm Sam.
And we are talking about hemophilia, the royal disease.
Royal disease.
We've talked about hemophilia a fair amount, right? We know this is a disease. It is a genetic disease, so it's passed through your family line. If you have it, you can blame your parents. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for giving me hemophilia. But the good news is, as we learned yesterday, you can live with this these days.
Yes, it's no longer kind of a death sentence.
It's not good.
It's not great, but there's a lot more better medicine and things like that to kind of keep you living a relatively normal life. And that is unlike many people in history who used to have this a long time ago, where we did not have that good of medicine and things like that. And that is kind of inside of our title, the royal disease, because if we look at history, many powerful people had hemophilia. And many powerful people died very young because of this disease.
Exactly right. And it would affect people and the government of that country because, of course, the royal family were often the rulers of a country. It could affect them for generations, for hundreds of years, because if the grandfather has it, then the great-great-grandchildren could have it too. And of course, in a royal family, the grandfather is also, the king, and the grandchildren could be the king or the queen of their time as well. And so this was a big problem back in the days when hemophilia was very dangerous and it would kill people around the age of 20. So imagine having a king or queen who was so weak and unhealthy because of hemophilia, they couldn't really run the country. Oh, these guys used to go out and fight wars. Imagine if your king, if he got a little sword cut, he's gonna die. That could make things very difficult and complicated, never mind scary for the families. So let's find out how hemophilia became known as the royal disease. We'll see you in a second. Hemophilia is transferred from parent to child. But if hemophiliacs used to die so young, then why didn't the disease die out? Interestingly, women can carry the disease, but they don't usually get symptoms. This means that mothers can pass it on to their children without realizing it. In this way, the disease can spread far and wide. Hemophilia is often called the royal disease because it was common in Europe's royal families. One of the most famous carriers of hemophilia was Britain's Queen Victoria. She passed it on to her children. Victoria's daughters and granddaughters then married into the royal families of Russia, Spain, Germany, and many other countries. This caused hemophilia to spread. Many male members of these families inherited the disease and suffered its terrible effects. This included Alexei, who was the son of the last Tsar of Russia. All right, so yes, hemophilia, the royal disease. Let's get into it and find out how this disease became very fancy with royal people.
Yes, I'm sure they loved that. So as our article says, it says hemophilia is transferred from parent to child. But if hemophiliacs used to die so young, then why didn't the disease die out? And that's a very good question because you need to transfer the disease. You need to pass it from one place to another because the verb transfer just means to send something or move something from one spot to another spot, or in this case, from one person to another person. For example, the disease is transferred from mosquitoes to humans, so moved from mosquitoes to humans. But if that's the case and everybody's dying so young, then shouldn't this disease have already been totally wiped out from the whole earth because all of the people who had it died before they had kids?
Yeah, that's a very good point. If all these people died around the age of 20 or earlier, when many people haven't already had their own children, then the disease shouldn't be here. Well, here's another amazing and sort of evil thing about hemophilia. Interestingly, women can carry the disease, but they don't usually get symptoms. In other words, they show no signs of the disease. It might not even affect them in their life, but it's in their blood and it can be passed to their children. So a mother could have it, not know she has it, or maybe she forgot that her father had it or something. If she has kids though, it can appear in those children, especially I guess if those are boy children, it's more likely to be there. So it can hide, in other words, in a family line. It says this means that mothers can pass it on to their children without realizing it. I guess if many women knew that I have a deadly disease, I could give it to my children could die young. Many women might say, well, I'm not going to have children.
Yes.
You know, I don't want that to happen, and the disease will eventually die out. But if you don't know you have it, you could very innocently, without meaning to do anything bad to your kids, pass it on to them. In this way, the disease can spread far and wide, both, you know, through the family. Those people can go and have families in other places, and also far and wide in time as well, through many generations, parent to child to child to child.
Yes, and also because this is something that we're seeing in the royal family, well, royal families have to have a lot of kids because they have to have a lot of boys. And
true.
so you will see this there's kind of no way for, even if the mom knew that she had it, she probably still has to have kids because she's a queen or a princess or anything like that.
Yeah.
So we see hemophilia is often called the royal disease because it was common in Europe's royal families. One of the most famous carriers of hemophilia was Britain's Queen Victoria.
Not good Queen Vic.
Yeah.
Wow.
So unfortunately, she was a carrier of the disease.
Yeah.
And when we say this carrier of a disease, it means that they have the disease themselves. They might not actually be showing the symptoms. Sometimes they are and sometimes they aren't. But the idea is that they have the disease and can pass it on. So there are lots of animals that are carriers of diseases. You probably have heard of things like rats being kind of dirty and you don't want to get too close to them. Rats and bats and birds are all mosquitoes. Those are all big carriers of different diseases that are very dangerous. So they have the disease. It might not affect themselves because it's already a rat, bird, whatever disease, but it could affect people. And so it says in our example sentence, rats are carriers of many different diseases.
That's right. Rabies, the plague, among others. This, of course, is why we were all wearing masks during COVID, because even if you felt healthy, you could have been a carrier of the COVID virus. And if you're coughing, it's going to spread even if you don't feel sick. All right, so Queen Victoria had hemophilia. She might have not have been a hemophiliac, like bleeding when she gets cut, but it's in her body, it's in her blood. She passed it on to her children. So when she had babies, the babies had children. And it's kind of a problem because Queen Victoria had many babies. She had, I don't know how, 12 kids? 18. She had a lot of kids. Victoria's daughters and granddaughters then married into the royal families of Russia, Spain, Germany, and many other countries. I'm trying to think, maybe Sweden I would throw in there too. I don't know. She had many kids. We should also point out, royal families didn't just go on dates. They didn't just meet people at parties. They would marry other royal families. So the number of people that they could sort of choose to make families with was much smaller. So diseases often stayed in those families and just got spread around. This caused hemophilia to spread. Many male members of these families inherited the disease and suffered its terrible effects. So if you look in the British royal family, the German royal family, the Russian royal family, you would probably find many people there who had hemophilia. The most famous case, it says, this included Alexei, who was the son of the last Tsar of Russia. Back then, only a boy could become the Tsar or the king of Russia, but poor Alexei was born with a very terrible disease. He had hemophilia. If he got cut, he would bleed. This was very dangerous. Let's take a break, and then we'll be back.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。第一天的课程有提到，血友病是一种遗传性疾病，由父母传给孩子。但是在1960年以前，严重的血友病患者预期寿命都还不到20岁。那血友病患者在过去年纪轻轻就过世了，那这种疾病为什么没有逐渐消失呢？原来女性可能会带原这种疾病，但是她们通常不会有症状，这表示母亲可能会在不知情的情况下把这种病传给孩子。那文中它用到 die out， 就是表达逐渐消失或是绝迹的意思。然后看到单字 transfer 它可以表达传递或是转移，像是我们要表达传递病毒等等。那被动用法 be transferred from A to B 就可以表达病毒或这个疾病从 A 传给 B。好，课文接着提到，血友病常常被称为王室病，因为它以前在欧洲王室中很常见。那其中一位最著名的血友病带原者就是英国维多利亚女王，她把病传给她的孩子们。那她的女儿和孙女之后嫁入了俄罗斯、西班牙、德国还有其他许多国家的王室，导致了血友病的扩散。那这些家族的许多男性成员也都遗传了这种疾病。好，单字 carrier 就可以表达疾病的带原者或是带菌者。那么 inherit 这个动词则表示经遗传而得到，或者是指继承，像继承财产等等。那这边两个重点，我们进入文法时间。我们来看第一个重点是 used to 加上原形动词，表示过去曾经怎么样，过去经常怎么样。那这个用法是表示过去的习惯或状况，暗示现在的情况已经有所改变。例如 I used to drink coffee every morning。我以前每天早上都会喝咖啡，这表示现在没有这种习惯了。第二个重点是 pass something on to somebody， 或者是 pass on something to somebody， 这表示把某事物传给某人，可以用来表达将疾病、物品、遗产或者是传统知识等等抽象事物传给某人。例如 Grace's son caught the flu and passed it on to her。Grace 的儿子得到了流感，接着传染给他了。好，接话课文中。
Though the fate of these royals was tragic, there was one positive outcome. Doctors began paying more attention to hemophilia because it was affecting powerful people. This led to more research and better treatments. Now, hemophilia is not the death sentence that it once was. All right, so hemophilia was a big but common problem in many of the royal families right across Europe, and a lot of that went through Queen Victoria, and the one we most focused on there was Alexei, who was the youngest son of the Tsar of Russia. The poor little boy was born with hemophilia. He did not live a long life. Though the fate of these royals was tragic, there was one positive outcome. So their fate was tragic. A lot of them had sad stories and died young, in other words, but there was one positive thing that came out of this. We'll get to that in a second after we talk about tragic. It's an adjective, yeah, and it just means terribly sad and awful, no good, something that you don't want to happen, or if it happens, it causes a lot of suffering and pain and sadness. That is tragic, all right? We can use it in a small way. Oh, I missed my bus and I was 20 minutes late for school. Oh, it was tragic. Well, yeah, but generally we would be talking about something maybe a little bit bigger, a little bit more important and sadder. A disaster, a car crash, a young baby getting sick with a terrible disease. Things that will really make us feel sad and cry and feel that life isn't fair. It's very tragic. The fire was tragic. as many people lost their homes and maybe their lives as well. Yeah, a very sad, sad thing to happen.
Yes, and then we had this word outcome, and an outcome is just the result of something. So something has happened. What is the end result of that thing? For example, in that last sentence, there was a fire. What was the outcome? Lots of homes were lost, right? And so our example sentence says, what was the outcome of the meeting? The meeting took place. Everybody talked and talked and talked. What was the result? What was the outcome? What was the ending of that meeting? And so now we look and see what was the positive outcome that happened from this tragic disease that affects so many royal people. Well, doctors began paying more attention to hemophilia because it was affecting powerful people. So there is something to say that, okay, it's affecting all our kings and, queens and princesses and all this stuff. Hey, somebody better start to figure this out. So this led to more research and better treatments. Now, hemophilia is not the death sentence that it once was.
So you're saying that when poor people were dying from it, but rich people, kings and queens, this is terrible. We gotta do something about it. Well, sadly, that's sometimes the truth. But of course, this is also back in the early days of science. They didn't have hundreds and thousands of scientists and labs and hospitals around the world, all doing different kinds of research. It was probably just a few people, and, they needed all the time to, look into these very complicated things because research is not simple and it's also not cheap. It can be very expensive because research is basically a very organized scientific look or investigation into a problem to try to learn things about it, and in the case of a disease, to try to find medicines or other ways of stopping it. But anytime scientists have many questions and they'd like to find out stuff, they have to do research. They don't just flip a coin or take a guess. They do tests, they do experiments, they do lab studies. That's all different research to get information to then learn more things. For example, we need to do more research on the health effects of fast food. There are many fat, rich people. We have to help them. Well, no, again, research today is done into all sorts of things. It's not just things that affect rich people.
Yes, and we have a what do you think question. And it says, do you know somebody who suffers from an illness? How does it affect their life? So not just this hemophilia, because that's fairly rare, I think, but if you have anybody, I don't know anybody personally about that has a kind of an illness that they have to take care of every single day.
A chronic illness.
Yes, but I know that it does affect a lot of people and can make life pretty difficult if you have just every day you're not feeling well. So.
Absolutely, yes. We need to definitely take some time to pay attention and care for people like this. People you know personally, or maybe just people who have a disease like hemophilia. It might not affect you, but it affects lots of people around the world. That's why we need to support scientists doing research into this and many other diseases. Because you never know, one day it might affect you or another person, or it affects others you don't know. We still want to help out so everyone can have a long, happy, and healthy life, including all of you out there. Take care, everyone. We'll see you back here soon. Bye-bye.
虽然那些遗传了血友病的王室成员命运很悲惨，但是有一个正面的结果，就是医生开始更加的关注血友病，因为它影响了有权势的人，这也促进了更多的研究和更好的疗法。那么现在血友病已经不像过去一样是死亡判决了。文中他用到 death sentence， 字面意思是死刑判决。那在这边它就是指说必定致命的病痛或者是情境。再来看单字 tragic， 它表示悲惨的或是悲剧的。Outcome 则表示结果、后果。Research 则是指研究、调查，它是不可数名词。Mike 老师在解释单字时，他用到 organized。Organized 可以形容是井然有序的、有组织的、有条理的。老师还用到 investigation，investigation。 Investigation 它表示调查、侦查。那在回答 What do you think question 的时候，老师则有提到 chronic illness， 就是指慢性病。那我们学一下 chronic 这个字 ，CHRONIC， 它可以用来表达像是疾病、残疾等等，它是慢性的、长期的。好，这么一个重点，我们进入文法时间。这边要介绍的是 lead to， 是指造成、导致或者是促成，之后接名词，它就跟 bring about 或者是 give rise to 等等的片语意思相同。例如 bad eating habits may lead to various health problems， 不良饮食习惯可能会导致各种不同的健康问题。好，那么以上件讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
Hemophilia is transferred from parent to child. But if hemophiliacs used to die so young, then why didn't the disease die out? Interestingly, women can carry the disease, but they don't usually get symptoms. This means that mothers can pass it on to their children without realizing it. In this way, the disease can spread far and wide. Hemophilia is often called the royal disease because it was common in Europe's royal families. One of the most famous carriers of hemophilia was Britain's Queen Victoria. She passed it on to her children. Victoria's daughters and granddaughters then married into the royal families of Russia, Spain, Germany, and many other countries. This caused hemophilia to spread. Many male members of these families inherited the disease and suffered its terrible effects. This included Alexei, who was the son of the last Tsar of Russia. Though the fate of these royals was tragic, there was one positive outcome. Doctors began paying more attention to hemophilia because it was affecting powerful people. This led to more research and better treatments. Now, hemophilia is not the death sentence that it once was.
Here's how to play. The host will be holding 3 cards. Each card will have 2 sentences containing a secret vocabulary word or phrase that has been replaced by the word bear. The host will read the sentences out loud for the contestants to guess. Whoever guesses first gets a point. The person with the most points wins. And you can play along too.
Hi guys, I'm Stephen.
I'm Josh.
And I am Caleb.
And we're about to play a game. Are you guys ready?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so the first one, this is a verb, it's one word. Number 1, the campers bared themselves by the fire. Number 2, the fresh cup of tea bared me up in no time.
Thawed.
Warmed.
There you go, Caleb got it. Coming in very smoothly. Okay, the campers warmed themselves by the fire. And number 2, the fresh cup of tea warmed me up in no time. All right, so come on, Josh, you got this next one.
Yeah.
This is a noun, one word. Number 1, it's rude to point at people with your bears. Number 2, Oscar accidentally cut his bear with the knife.
Gun.
John?
Oh, gun. No, it's not.
And number 1, it's rude to point at people with your bears. Number 2, Oscar accidentally cut his bear with the knife.
It's fingers.
Thank you, Josh. It's rude to point at people with your fingers. And number 2, Oscar accidentally cut his finger with the knife.
Poor Oscar,
Okay.
mate.
Yeah.
All right, this is a phrase, 2 words. This is a tiebreaker. All right, number 1, 2-word phrase. Pearl likes bearing her friends bear the movies. Number 2, Greg bared his parents bear Paris for the summer.
Take to see?
Take 2.
Take 2. Oh, take 2.
Okay,
Take
so
2.
it's 2 words. So Caleb gets that point. All right, so it was Pearl likes taking her friends to the movies, and Greg took his parents to Paris for the summer. So Caleb has won the game.
Caleb wins again!
Yeah. Educational purposes only. Educational purposes only.